Hello and welcome to DH Political Theatre, where our guest for the day is the former Union Finance Minister, Mr. P Chidambaram. Mr. Chidambaram, as all of us know, has been Finance Minister, has been Home Minister, and is unquestionably the senior statesman in the Congress Party today. So we'll be asking him a range of questions across politics, the economy, and his home state of Tamil Nadu. Mr. Chidambaram, thank you for being with us. It's very kind.
Morning.
Morning. So can we start, as you would expect, by the question on the economy? How do you rate the 5 years of Mr. Modi's government? Give us an assessment, what's worked, what hasn't.
It's a wasted opportunity. The BJP had 282 members in the Lok Sabha, first time in 30 years, and they could have brought about tremendous structural changes in the economy. Compare it to what Mr. Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh did between 91 and 96, and the state of the economy is dismal. I don't wish to make general statements. The best way to assess the state of the economy is to look at indicators. Start looking at investment, credit growth, fiscal deficit, exports, jobs, current account deficit. Every one of them at the end of 5 years leaves much to be desired. The most important failure is jobs. Where are the jobs? Wherever you go, in whichever survey, the number one issue is jobs. So I think altogether, the 5 years were wasted. Not only were they wasted in terms of the opportunity that was available, they derailed the economy by demonetization and a hopelessly flawed GST. I think demonetization is one ground that is sufficient to come to the conclusion that this government has no clue of how to run a national economy.
Let me take you up on a few of those very interesting points. Now, are we headed for a prolonged slowdown given that these indicators are all quite weak? How do you see this panning out in the next 2 or 3 years?
See, world is turning protectionist. World growth is expected to slow down in 2019 and into perhaps half of 2020. Exports are sluggish for India, and thanks to protectionism and withdrawal of GSP preferences, exports are not likely to pick up. So where is the trigger? Where is the trigger for India's growth? The only trigger appears to be government expenditure, but even there they are constrained by the fiscal deficit and the revenue deficit. So I think what we saw in the first 3 quarters of the current fiscal year, 2018-19, 8%, 7%, 6.6%, this is likely to continue until or unless the next government comes and does something dramatic.
Which brings us very neatly to the next question about what would you do? What would be your priorities if you were to come to power? What would you do to fix some of these things you just mentioned?
See, it will depend upon the nature of the government. Who is in the government and rather who are in the government. If it is a single party government of the Congress, there is much we can do. If it is a coalition government where the power is shared with other parties, one has to work out a common program. I think you will find the Congress manifesto quite bold, quite radical, and quite transformative. So if we have an opportunity to implement the Congress manifesto, I think we'll be able to put the economy back on rails.
Could you tell us a little bit about what's in the manifesto? I know it's early days, but...
I can invite you to Ahmedabad tomorrow, and if the Congress Working Committee discusses the manifesto, you can be privy to that discussion. But at the moment, I can't give you details about the manifesto, except that the manifesto has several sections, and each section deals with the problem and lays out the path forward. And there are radical solutions which are being proposed.
Let me come at this another way then. So what changes would you make to GST, for example, to make it slightly more effective? How would you streamline it?
We're going to call our GST GST2, which means this GST is hopelessly flawed. They're trying to fix it, as you have seen over the last 6-7 months. They're desperately fixing it, cutting rate, changing this, issuing a notification, making a rule. Utter confusion. I had a long conversation with a former chairman of the Central Board of Excise and Customs, who's an authority on GST. And he just threw up his hands when I pointed out this and that. He said, doesn't make sense at all. I'm a practicing lawyer, and I don't know whether you've read the GST Act. If anyone can make sense of the key sections of the GST Act, the simple English language that is written there, and you can make sense, I'm prepared to recommend that you be admitted to the bar without passing a law examination.
Thank you very much. So very complex and very dense.
And remember, to the best of my knowledge, you can check it, the GST law has not been translated into other Indian languages. So how does a small trader in Karaikudi, my town, understand what this is? How is he going to comply with it? It should be in Oriya, it should be in Bengali, it should be in Assamese. I believe it's not there. Even the English is ununderstandable. Who will take the responsibility to translate it into the local language?
But they had a long time running into this. I mean, what do you think went wrong? Is it rushed through at the last minute, or what's your reading of it?
What went wrong is incompetence and their unwillingness to consult. We offered, in Parliament, consult us, consult the opposition, and we will help you design the Constitution Amendment and the GST law. They flatly refused. For example, I have never been asked by this government what my views are on how the GST should be implemented.
So in a sense, is the style of functioning coming back to bite them? I mean, is it that they have not spoken to other parties, they've not had an open mind on some of these things?
I know they have not spoken to anyone, but within the government there's very little competence. Take, for example, is there any internationally reputed economist in this government? Answer is no. Is there any internationally reputed tax economist in this government? Answer is no. And contrasted with what the UPA had. We had Dr. Parthasarathi Shom, Subhashis Gangopadhyaya, Kaushik Pasu, Raghuram Rajan, Dr. Rangarajan, Govind Rao, Bimal Jalan, Vijay Kelkar. I mean, I can give you a whole set of names. This government is nobody in the government today who is an internationally reputed economist. And the couple of guys who joined the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council very quickly and very cleverly quit the council. And they have not been replaced either.
What does that say about their political bosses? Is there a...
It says that there is no rapport between the economist and the political leader. Either the political leader feels overshadowed by arguments of economists, or the economists are uncomfortable with the policy thinking of the government leaders. They are certainly not on the same page, but they are perhaps not even able to sing from a same hymn book. You give them a hymn book, at least you should be able to sing together. Apparently they can't.
So what do you think went wrong in the RBI with that equation with Mr. Ujit Patel and...
You saw the minutes now? Yes. The minutes have been published. The RBI board, a truncated board, was called to hold an emergency meeting in Delhi at 5:30 p.m. on the 7th of November 2016. And the RBI board, let's give credit to it, pointed out that it will not be able to deal with the issue of black money. It will not be able to make any dent on counterfeit currency because the total counterfeit currency is only about 400 crore. It will not stop illegal funding of illegal activities. And yet, I think they were asked to send a one-line recommendation approving demonetization, which they must have done reluctantly. It's obvious. The reluctance is obvious when you read the minutes. Sure. But that, unfortunately, the RBI board and the then governor, Dr. Ujit Patel, did not cover themselves with glory when they sent that recommendation. I think it was a major failure, and I think Dr. Ujit Patel, unfortunately, paid a price for that failure.
So you would say that he was dragged kicking and screaming into this whole demonetization thing. He should have quit.
It appears so. It appears so. He should have stood his ground and said, sorry, we can't look at a proposal like this within 24 hours. We need to study it, we need to gather data, and we need to come back with a proper response. But the letter is written to them on the 6th, board meets on the 7th, and the demonetization is announced. I mean, board meets on the 8th actually. Board meets on the 8th actually, half an hour before demonetization. I think it's a very, very unfortunate chapter in the history of RBI.
Just a quick digression. I know time is limited, but governments in the past have also had this slightly testy relationship with the RBI. How do you see that? Is that a healthy tension to have, or do you see it playing out differently?
No, these tensions are healthy. I had my book launch in Hyderabad 5 days ago, and the two most prominent guests at the book launch were Dr. Y.V. Reddy and Dr. Subbarao. They were there in the first row, the first two seats. It's a healthy tension that the finance minister and the RBI governor must be able to engage each other practically every other day and certainly every week and debate it. Ultimately, the RBI's view prevails. In the entire tenure of the UPA, while we've had healthy debate in matters which fall within the jurisdiction of the RBI, we allowed the RBI view to prevail, although I may have been unhappy, or any other finance minister may have been unhappy. Never have we acted in a manner that the BJP has acted, namely force the governor to fall in line, threaten him with a board-managed RBI, pack the board with your own nominees, and then tell him if he doesn't fall in line, he may go. I mean, this is unheard of. Have you ever heard of two successive governors of the RBI resigning in disgust and walking away in mid-term?
The most contentious thing I think that the government did, and you mentioned it, demonetization. Yes. How is it still playing out, the after effects, the negative effects?
Wherever you go, I was in Tirupur about 3 weeks ago. Wherever you go, they tell you how SMEs have been forced to close down, how jobs are being destroyed. See, Tirupur, even 3-4 years ago, if you drive on the roads of Tirupur, you will find vacancies in Tamil. We are recruiting people. In practically every gate of every large factory, you will find the board, job vacancies available. Today you can't find a single one. There were 5,000 ancillary units in Tirupur doing ancillary job work for the major garment manufacturers, employing 2, 3, 4 people. Today 500 are functioning. 4,500 have shut down. The Tamil Nadu Industries Minister formally told the state legislature that thanks to demonetization and the GST, 50,000 MSMEs in Tamil Nadu alone have been closed down and 5 lakh jobs have been lost. This is in Tamil Nadu alone. Now you multiply that for other states, Jalandhar, Moradabad, whatever, all the towns, all the industrial hub towns. Demonetization started it, GST completed it. The complete or virtually complete destruction of the MSME, especially the M and the S, the micro and the small.
A major issue, as you've touched upon, has been jobs, and I think all this is related. What will you do to start generating jobs if and when you come back to power?
Well, I'll tell you what our thinking is. I'm not going to tell you the details. We know which are the job-creating sectors in India. We know that. So we'll have to take a sectoral approach, a focused approach for each job-creating sector and work out the policies. There can't be a one-size-fits-all approach. We know the job-creating sectors. I think there are half a dozen. And in those half a dozen sectors, we will have a focused sectoral approach which will promote increase in jobs rather than capital-led growth.
So it looks like this whole talk of doubling farmers' income by 2022 is going to be very difficult. Do you think it is possible at all?
It's impossible. The arithmetic will tell you that. You see, you saw the graph that's been published. The 5-year agriculture sector growth is 2.8%. If you want to, income growth in the farm sector is 2.8%. If farm income is to double in 5 years, it has to grow at about 16% a year. Sure. Now, if it has grown at 2.8% in the first 3 years of this time period, it has to grow something like 30% a year for the next 2-3 years. It's simply impossible. Simply impossible. Farm income will not double by the date they have set for themselves, and it may not double even for several years thereafter. The highest farm sector growth was in UPA 2, 3.7%. The average for UPA 1 and UPA 2 was 3.1%. So farm income will not double. And in fact, it's a wrong approach. What you need to argue is, how will farm income and non-farm income for the farmer together double his income? I think their arithmetic is flawed, their approach is flawed.
So if you were to make a similar, well, not similar, but
I won't make similar foolish statement.
A commitment along the lines of farmer income, what would that be in the Congress?
See, we will say that we will ensure that farm income grows at a healthy rate, but you have to supplement it by non-farm income and off-farm income. The farm income is entirely based on crop income. This is essentially a crop-based agriculture. And you're reckoning your income by looking at what income you get out of growing paddy or wheat or cotton or sugar cane. We'll have to move away from that. We'll have to talk about non-crop income, then non-agricultural income, and non-farm income.
Can you tell us a little bit about MIG and how it's going to work and what impact do you think it will have on government finances?
Well, quite happily. MIG is, I think, a moral imperative in the 72nd year of independence. The bottom 20%, or you can give or take a couple of percentage points, is in poverty. There is no hunger, perhaps, thanks to Maganrega. There is no hunger, but there is poverty. That poverty is a stain on India. That stain has to be removed. It can be removed. And what we are proposing is not revolutionary. It has been tried in other countries of the world. It has been tried in different ways. All that we are saying is we will make a cash transfer to the bottom 10% in the first year of rollout. The bottom 10% will get a cash transfer to bring them to a level of minimum income at which they will not be abjectly poor. And then we will move to the next decile. We are not going beyond the bottom 20%. I think this is doable. We are consulting, we have consulted, and we are consulting very reputed economists. Yes, it's difficult but doable. They are helping us design the program, and we will be able to convince the people of India that this is doable within the finances.
I started off by asking you for an assessment of the Modi years and for some positives. Would you say anything's worked at all in terms of, from your standpoint? Manrega, for example, the widening of the scheme, or anything else they've done which you think has worked?
No, I don't think they've done anything great to widen Maganrega. In fact, wages are due for about 3 months. The Maganrega expenditure is, the allocation for Maganrega is not sufficient to meet the demand. And it's not any longer demand-based. There are several panchayats I know where there's not been Maganrega work for several weeks. So, in fact, they have reluctantly implemented Maganrega because they have no substitute for that. If Maganrega is taken away, hunger will come back to villages. So I don't credit them with anything great about Maganrega. Yes, they've done well on the highways. They've done well on the highways. I think they have continued the good work on the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. But beyond that, I can't think of anything. The one thing you guys should be happy about is the several fold increase in advertisements to the media.
Now just switching track a little bit to elections. 1 month away exactly. How does, yeah, I mean, I think the Congress had a kind of a Pulwama pause where when this happened, you called off hostilities, so to speak, with the BJP and kind of stood shoulder to shoulder. Now, how do you come back on track, and what are the major issues you can hope to raise which will have traction with the public?
So what we did was the right thing to do. The Indian Air Force, after the Pulwama strike, we condemned the Pulwama strike. And then when the Indian Air Force did make a strike in Pakistan, in Balakot, Congress President was the first to say, I salute the Indian Air Force. I think the matters should have been left there, and the unanimity that was shown by political parties would have remained intact as far as national security is concerned. But the BJP is blatantly politicized it. Blatantly politicized it by embellishing the event, adding all kinds of things. And naturally, questions were being raised. Please remember, we did not raise the questions first. The questions were first raised by the international media. Questions were raised by two widows of martyrs. Questions were raised by local residents. And a political party has to necessarily respond to the evolving situation. So we are not in any way compromising national security or belittling the Indian Air Force's effort. What we are questioning is the BJP's blatant politicization. Has there been a day where the Prime Minister has not used Pulwama for partisan political purposes?
So that's the advantage of being in power, I guess, at a point like this. How will you counter this, being the opposition? Effectively, how can you?
See, Pulwama and the IAF strike is not going to bring jobs to the youth. It's not going to revive small and medium enterprises. It's not going to bring down the acute farmers' distress. It's not going to bring down prices. Please remember, non-food inflation is about 5.6%. So I think when we go out to the people, as we are, and we start talking about real issues of jobs, businesses, credit, educational opportunities, people will wake up and say, yes, you've been there for 5 years. Are you going to ask our vote only on the fact that the Indian Air Force struck in Balakot? Indian Air Force does not belong to the BJP, it belongs to the country. Sure. Therefore, 5 years of failure on jobs, failures on investment, failures on economic growth, failures on the farm sector, all that is going to be kept aside. We might as well then vote for the Indian Air Force chief to become Prime Minister. So I don't think that's the way people will look at it. Let me tell you, the top 3 issues in the next election are jobs, jobs, and jobs. These are the top 3 issues.
You mentioned the Air Force. How will your party ensure that Rafale remains front and center of the campaign? Do you find that it's getting traction, or is it just too abstract for?
No, it is. It is. And today I saw Mr. Ram say that the story is not over. There's more that has to be investigated. How can you wish away Rafale? Sure. See, the aircraft is delayed because the earlier deal was scrapped and a new deal was entered into. The first of the Rafale aircraft will not come, they say, before September. I have doubts about that. And serious questions are not being answered. Why were the 3 anti-corruption clauses deleted? Why was the payment security mechanism completely jettisoned? No sovereign guarantee, no bank guarantee, no escrow account. And the questions about the offset partner. I think these questions will not go away. And if you think they are too abstract for the people of India, you're wrong. People of India are no longer illiterate or uninformed. Literacy is over 72%. And in many states, literacy is nearly 100%. People read newspapers, people watch television, people debate it. Therefore, I don't think this is the India of the 1950s and 60s when an issue like this will not gain traction at all.
So finally, can we go to your home state of Tamil Nadu, where politics has changed so radically now that the two big names are gone, Ms. Jayalalitha and Mr. Karunanidhi. How do you see this panning out, and what sort of alliances are you looking at? How do you see the situation evolving?
The alliances have been firmed up as of yesterday. On our side, we have DMK, Congress, the two communist parties, the Indian Union Muslim League, and the Dalit Party, the Vidudalai Chiruthaigal. Our alliance is firmed up, and we have got a Kongu party. Our alliance is firmed up. The AIADMK seems to have firmed up its alliance as of yesterday. They have got the AIADMK, BJP, DMDK, and the PMK. We have the MDMK on our side. So the alliances are, the battle lines are being drawn. The spoiler in the game is Mr. Dinakaran, who has split the AIADMK. Yes. And don't write him off. In many constituencies, in many districts, a significant portion of the hardcore AIADMK worker is with Mr. Dinakaran. He won the by-election in RK Nagar, and he's focusing on 21 by-elections now. And he will split the AIADMK vote. Firstly, the AIADMK today is not the same as the AIADMK under Jayalalitha. They don't have Jayalalitha. That makes all the difference. And then that vote is going to be split. And I've told a few friends in the opposition camp that in Tamil Nadu, the AIADMK alliance is not 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. It is 1 + 1 + 1 - 1. The BJP is a negative factor. It's -1. It doesn't add to the AIADMK alliance. It actually subtracts from the AIADMK alliance, because once you see the BJP flag, once you see the BJP leaders come in harangue us in Hindi, the first question that arises, this Hindutva party is imposing Hindi upon us and is dragging Tamil Nadu back several years. Tamil Nadu today has moved away from many of the ideas which are cherished by the BJP. And the BJP brings to the Tamil voter the threat of Hindi imposition, the threat of diluting reservation, the threat of the NEET exam, the threat of the Sterlite factory. So many things on which the Tamil people are united and have an opinion which is diametrically opposed to the views of the BJP. All other parties, to some degree or other, are acceptable. But the BJP is completely unacceptable to the people of Tamil Nadu.
But it's being said that this traditional 39-0 or 40-0 is not going to happen this time.
Maybe. It may not be 39-0, but I'll be quite happy with 36-3.
Thank you, sir. On that note, thank you for your time. Wonderful meeting you again. All the best. Thank you. Thank you. And it's been great having Chidambaram on the show. Please do tune in for other updates with senior political figures as we get closer to election season. Thank you very much.